I'm Steve Dixon. I'm the President, Chief Operating Officer of Maryland Community Health Initiative. We operate Penn North Kids Safe Zone, Penn North Community Resource Center, and Penn North Recovery Center. I urge you to give an unfavorable recommendation to this bill, because this bill is going to just harm more and more of our citizens. It's going to be a burden on our taxpayers. All right? When you send a child or you send an adult in for these maximum sentences, when they come out, who takes care of them? The burden is left on the taxpayers. Who takes care of their health care? Who takes care of them reentry into society? This is not good at all. And it's a return to the 1980s. What are we going to do, fill our prisons back up again and be a burden on our society? How are we going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for it? I certainly don't want to put one more dollar of my tax money into it. And I hope each and every one of you feel the same way. Doesn't make sense. What are we, barbarians? Or are we going to go back to helping our citizens? At my center, I'll give you a prime example. Some of these mandatory sentences have caused, I've had to have the unfortunate opportunity of helping about 5 people re-enter who have served over 40 years each in prison. I have one gentleman that came to me 4 years ago. He was 79 on a Friday. He turned 80 that Monday. What are you going to do with him? He's 84 now. His health care is atrocious. He hasn't been able to work. Where does he live? He's been a burden on our society. And you have now about 200 guys that are returning to us in the city that have served over 39 years because of these kind of sentences. What do they do with themselves?
Who pays for the trauma that some of these folks have inflicted on other folks, though? I think that's the question a lot of us have. You talked about somebody who's been in jail for 39 years, and I don't know what they did and whether it was justified or not, but this is not really, we're not talking about anything that's sentencing that long in this bill, based on what I'm hearing. I recognize, I think a lot of us on the committee have been sensitive to the idea that mandatory minimums across the board, it's good to try to get rid of those when we can and rely on judicial discretion, but we have a huge problem, and some of it's in the jurisdiction that you're in, and then some of them are around the state. You're talking about the trauma inflicted on people when they go to jail. What about the community that is afraid right now? And what about the community? What about what's been happening to young people that are having these things happen to them? I mean, there is two sides. I understand your perspective you're coming from, but saying is it barbarian or whatever? I mean, there's a lot of that going on right now. So, I mean, can you give us kind of on the other hand, or your perspective on that?
Of course, absolutely. We know that we're not talking about just letting people walk away from whatever crimes that they've committed, but we're talking about sentences that are just, extreme sentences. A few years ago, the Baltimore Sun did an article. We're supposed to be the land of the free, but we're the only country on the planet that has these kind of sentences, and we're an industrialized Western nation. We got to have some form of forgiveness too. I don't want anybody to walk away. I don't want victims to suffer either, but I don't want us to be overburdened with these kind of prison sentences that don't make sense.
But do you think that if someone uses a gun in the commission of a crime multiple times, to me, you get one. The first time, maybe you get some mercy and grace, but the second time, there has to be some real consequence. I mean, I guess we're not going to agree, and that's okay. I mean, I understand where you come from. I don't understand the mentality that, I don't know that there's other places where where we're having this level of engagement where firearms are being used on the streets in broad daylight, like we're seeing in some places in our state. I don't know that we see that in maybe another country. I don't know. But
no, we don't. But I think maybe we should do something about, have we talked about seeing if firearm manufacturers, we're being dumped on.
Well, I don't think the people that are brandishing the weapons are getting them from the firearm manufacturers. They're getting them through illegal means. And if somebody gets an illegal gun and uses it in a legal fashion, I don't understand the broad-based opposition from some folks that are here today against what seems sort of common sense. But I don't want to go back and forth with you. I understand we probably have a little different perspective. So thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to follow up on the conversation you were just having with my fellow colleague who lives in the represents the border to my district over in Carroll County. How much time do you think you should get if you're on your second, if you get convicted again of carrying a gun with assault with intent to murder? How much time do you? I'm just curious. How much time do you think is reasonable to be sentenced to?
Well, I'm not a judge. I think that should be left up to the judge.
Well, actually, you've been testifying that some of these sentences are too harsh. So now I'm trying to get specific with you because you did testify that some of these sentences are too harsh. So I'm curious how much time you believe that somebody is carrying a gun and it's their second conviction with assault with intent to murder. How much time do you think they should get?
I think that should be left up to the discretion of the judge. I don't think we should make a law that makes it mandatory that we give them any amount of time. I think that should be left up to the discretion of a judge.
So you think so what you just said is you think in certain circumstances there shouldn't be significant time depending on the circumstances of it?
I mean, significant is a very vague word. What does that mean? Significant could mean 20 years, 10 years, 100 years. What's significant to you might not be significant to me.
I representing Baltimore County and Northern Baltimore County, I see a state's attorney and a criminal justice system in my county where somebody like who on the second time might get 30 years, and they get 30 years, and then I pick up the newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, which I've been reading since I was a kid, and I see 30 years, and I see but 24 years suspended and a 6-year sentence, and then on a violent crime you have to serve half your sentence, so then they're walking in 3, and I see a jurisdiction of mine where the homicides are one-tenth of what they are in Baltimore City. And I do understand that the city has significantly more problems than Baltimore County. So you can see where I'm sitting here when I take a look at the violent crime and the victims and how the two systems are working. My jurisdiction seems like it's following some of the pathways of some of this legislation, not all of it, and the results are better and people feel safer. So just so you see where I'm sitting from in this seat, that's what I'm following. So I hear you, but it's very, very frustrating over the years. And this is my 16th year here to see sentences suspended over and over and over again by judges and the same people doing the same thing. And 98% of the people in Baltimore City are hardworking, smart, law-abiding citizens. To see them victimized over and over and over again, and this very, very small percentage keeps getting a shot to ruin everybody else's lives. It's frustrating. But thank you for coming.
You want to let me comment? I think it's unfair for you to even try to measure what goes on in your county with Baltimore City. We talk about different poverty levels, different educational levels, different income levels. You're talking about different socioeconomic conditions. So, of course, we have some judges who've made some mistakes and given somebody a suspended sentence. But you also have some judges who made mistakes and given somebody 100, 200 years. So what happens when the person returns? They're going to return one day. What happens when they return? So instead of doing that, why don't we have grassroots organizations like mine that does plenty of good work, that instead of dumping this large amount of money into law enforcement, prison sentences, why don't we put some of this money into prevention to help these situations? So I think I think you're measuring apples and oranges when you measure Baltimore County and Baltimore City.